Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderchild, his face showing no emotion as the massive view screen displayed the unfolding battle. Outside, the stars were temporarily blotted out by explosions as Tarsian warships disintegrated one after another. Their purple-hulled vessels, once the terror of 3 star systems, were being reduced to space dust in seconds. "Sir, the Tarsian flagship is attempting to retreat," reported Lieutenant Bay, her fingers dancing across the tactical console. "Should we pursue?" Lee watched silently for a moment, his weathered face reflecting the flashes of distant explosions. At 45, he was considered young for a captain of such an advanced vessel, but he had earned his position through 20 years of distinguished service. "No, let them go," he finally said. "They need to carry the message back to their leaders." Thunderchild had not even been scratched. Not a single enemy weapon had penetrated their defenses. What had been expected to be a difficult border skirmish had turned into something else entirely, a revelation of power that would change humanity's place in the galaxy. Cascade Field operating at 98% efficiency, called out Officer Jun from the engineering station. "Dr. Kim's modifications to the particle alignment are working better than projected." Lee nodded. Dr. Kim had warned him about the weapon's potential. "This isn't just an advancement," she had told him during the system's installation 3 months ago. "It's a leap that takes us beyond where the Coalition thinks we should be." The Tarsian attack on the human mining colony at Proxima Centauri had prompted Earth Command to send their newest ship as a show of force. No one had expected this outcome, least of all the Tarsians, who had grown accustomed to pushing around the younger galactic species. "Record all battle data," Lee ordered. "Earth Command will want a complete analysis." What Lee didn't say was that the footage would inevitably leak to the wider Coalition. Humanity had kept the Thunderchild's true capabilities secret until now, but there was no hiding it anymore. The Cascade Field technology, which created overlapping energy fields that grew exponentially stronger as they absorbed enemy fire, was unlike anything seen in Coalition space. 12 hours later, Ambassador Park stood before the Galactic Council, facing the angry stares of representatives from 28 spacefaring civilizations. The Council Chamber, a vast amphitheater carved from a single asteroid, hummed with tension. The human vessel used prohibited weapons technology, bellowed Representative Ulo of the Barixian Confederacy, his translucent appendages waving in agitation. "For they have violated the spirit of Coalition membership," Park maintained her composure, despite being thoroughly outnumbered. At 62, she had spent decades helping humanity navigate the complex politics of the Coalition, but nothing had prepared her for this crisis. "With respect, Representative," she replied, her voice steady, "no such prohibition exists for defensive systems of this nature. The Tarsians attacked our colony unprovoked. We responded with appropriate force." "Appropriate?" The Vulan representative's voice was a harsh electronic buzz from his environmental suit. "The footage shows your single vessel destroying 17 warships in under 6 minutes. This goes beyond defense. This is a fundamental shift in power. Dynamics." On the massive display behind them, the battle replayed. The council members watched in stunned silence as the Thunderchild's cascade field rippled with blue-white energy, growing stronger with each Tarsian attack before releasing that energy back in devastating pulses. "Humans have been Coalition members for barely 30 years, said the ancient Medusan representative, her feathered crest flattening in disapproval. "Yet somehow you've developed technology that our scientists say should be centuries beyond your current development stage." Park had been prepared for suspicion, but not for the fear she now sensed. These weren't just angry diplomats. They were frightened representatives of species that had ruled the stars since before humans had electricity. "The human capacity for innovation shouldn't come as a surprise," she responded carefully. "It's been documented in our shared cultural exchanges. Innovation. Here's one thing," said the Cillian representative, his 8 eyes blinking in sequence. "This is something else entirely. We must convene an emergency session to discuss the implications." As murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber, Park knew this was only the beginning. The Thunderchild had changed everything. Humanity had been seen as the eager newcomers to galactic society, clever but harmless. That perception had just been shattered in 6 minutes of combat footage. "Very well," she said, keeping her voice level. "Earth will participate in any discussions regarding coalition security. But remember that we deployed this technology only after our citizens were attacked." As the council chamber emptied, Park contacted Earth Command on a secure channel. "They're scared," she reported to the grim-faced officials on the other end. "All of them, even the Medusans. The Thunderchild has changed our position here overnight." "We expected some backlash," replied Defense Minister Yu. "But we need you to buy just time. The Tarsians won't be the last to test our borders." Park nodded, though she suspected the minister didn't fully grasp how dramatically things had changed. She had spent decades among these species, learning their cultures and psychology. The fear she'd seen today was primal, the fear of being surpassed by the young upstarts they had welcomed into their cosmic community. As she gathered her notes, Park overheard 2 junior representatives speaking in low voices. "If humans can build one such ship, they can build more," whispered one. "And if they can advance this quickly in weapons technology, what else might they be developing?" responded the other. Park pretended not to hear, but their words confirmed her fears. The revelation of the Thunderchild's power had just made humanity's position in the galaxy far more precarious. 3 weeks after the Thunderchild incident, Earth's highest officials gathered in the underground war room beneath New Geneva. The mood was grim as they reviewed the document that had just arrived from Coalition headquarters. "They're calling it the Weapons Limitation Treaty," said President Kang, her voice tight with controlled anger. "But let's be honest, it's the anti-human treaty." Defense Minister Choi slammed his fist on the polished table. "This is outrageous. They've designed every clause to target our technology specifically. Look at Section 12. It bans self-reinforcing energy field technology. They might as well have called it the Ban the Thunderchild Act." The treaty document, displayed on screens around the room, contained over 30 pages of technical specifications and limitations. To the untrained eye, it might have seemed like a general weapons restriction agreement. But everyone in the room could see the truth. Every major prohibition aligned perfectly with human technological advantages. "The language was crafted by the Medusans," noted Foreign Secretary Wu. "They've been diplomatic masters for 6,000 years. We never stood a chance in the negotiations." President Kang paced the room slowly. At 68, she had guided Earth through its first decades of coalition membership. "What happens if we refuse to sign?" Admiral Jun, the oldest person in the room at 74, spoke up. "They'll use it as proof that we're a danger to galactic stability. 7 species have already threatened to cut trade relations. 3 more have hinted at military action to contain the human threat." "So they fear us enough to threaten war?" asked Choi incredulously. "Fear makes for dangerous politics," replied Ambassador Park, who had just returned from the coalition. "Capital. I've never seen anything like it. Species that have been enemies for centuries are suddenly working together, united by their fear of humanity." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth had only 8 fully developed colonies and a combined fleet of less than 200 warships. Against the United Coalition forces, they would be hopelessly outnumbered. "What about the Thunderchild?" asked President Kang. "And the 3 sister ships under construction?" Admiral Jun's expression darkened. "The treaty requires the Thunderchild to return to Earth for immediate decommissioning. All research into Cascade field technology must be handed over to Coalition inspectors and permanently discontinued." Defense Minister Choi stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. "This is nothing but technological suppression. They're afraid we'll surpass them, so they're using politics to keep us down." "Of course they are," said Ambassador Park calmly. "Wouldn't we do the same if a younger species suddenly demonstrated technology that made our defenses obsolete?" The logic was uncomfortable but undeniable. "What do you recommend?" President Kang asked her advisors. After a long pause, Foreign Secretary Wu spoke. "We sign, for now. We're not ready for isolation from the galactic community, let alone open conflict with it. We need time." The vote was reluctant, but nearly unanimous. Earth would comply. Captain Lee read the orders twice, unable to believe what he was seeing. The Thunderchild, humanity's greatest technological achievement, was to return to Earth for decommissioning. His ship, his incredible ship, would be gutted like a fish. "Is this some kind of joke?" he asked his executive officer. "Commander." Zhang shook her head. "Direct from Earth Command, sir. Top priority. The crew of the Thunderchild had become celebrities back home after footage of their battle with the Tarsians went viral. They had expected medals, not this surrender. The crew won't like this," Lee said, staring out the viewport at the stars. The Thunderchild was currently patrolling the edge of human space near the Tarsian border. "No, sir, they won't," agreed Zhang. "Especially after what we just did to protect our colonies." Lee sighed heavily. "Set course for Earth, standard speed." He wouldn't rush to this execution. As Commander Zhang left to relay the orders, Lee opened a secure channel to an old friend, Admiral Han at Fleet Intelligence. Han's weathered face appeared on the screen. "I assume you've received your orders," said Han without preamble. "Yes." "Care to explain why we're gutting our best defense?" Han glanced around and lowered his voice. "Politics, the coalition species, are terrified of the Thunderchild. They've pushed through a treaty specifically designed to eliminate our advantage. And we're just accepting this?" Lee couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. "Officially, yes." Han's expression was unreadable. "But I'm sending you some data you should see before you reach Earth. Intelligence we've gathered over the past a week." The file transfer notification blinked on Lee's screen. "What am I looking at?" asked Lee as he opened the encrypted package. "Tarsian fleet movements," replied Han. "They're mobilizing, not just border patrols, but their main battle groups. 3 fleets converging near our colonial territories." Lee studied the data with growing concern. "This looks like preparation for a major offensive." "It gets worse," said Han. "Check the second file. Coalition peacekeeping forces are being redeployed for scheduled exercises. Notice where they're moving." Lee's eyes narrowed as he examined the map. "They're pulling away from our borders, all of them." "Precisely. The same borders where Tarsian fleets are gathering." The implication was clear. Either through deliberate conspiracy or convenient negligence, the coalition forces would be absent when the Tarsians attacked. "Does Earth Command know about this?" Lee asked. "They've been informed, but officially, we must trust our coalition partners and comply with the treaty." "Officially." The emphasis on officially wasn't lost on Lee. "And unofficially?" Admiral Han's face revealed nothing. "Unofficially, Captain, I suggest you take your time returning to Earth. Mechanical problems happen to the best of ships, especially when traveling through regions with known subspace disturbances." Lee understood. "Of course, Admiral. The Thunderchild is an experimental vessel, after all. Who knows what technical issues might arise?" "Indeed," said Han. "Keep your sensors sharp, Captain. And remember, whatever happens, Earth Command will officially disavow any actions not in compliance with the treaty." After the transmission ended, Lee sat alone in his quarters, weighing his options and responsibilities. Outside his window, the stars streaked by as the Thunderchild moved toward Earth at a deliberately unhurried pace. On his desk, the decommissioning orders seemed to mock him. Meanwhile, the intelligence data painted a clear picture. Humanity was being set up. They had scared the older species, who had responded not with respect, but with fear and treachery. The ship would reach Earth in 10 days at their current speed. Lee wondered how many human colonists might die if the Tarsians attacked while the Thunderchild was being dismantled. "Navigation," he called through the ship's comm system. "Plot a course that takes us near the New Horizon colony. For observational purposes." "Yes, Captain," came the prompt reply. "Course adjusted." If trouble was coming, Lee intended to be close enough to respond. Treaty or no treaty, New Horizon was humanity's proudest colony, a thriving world of 15 million people. Its 3 major cities gleamed under the light of twin suns, surrounded by fields of golden grain adapted to the planet's unique soil chemistry. Children played in parks, while farmers tended crops that fed not only the colonists, but were exported to other human settlements. A perfect picture of humanity's expansion among the stars, until the morning the sky filled with Tarsian warships. Governor Ju was in his office when the first bombs fell. The building shook, sending him stumbling into a wall. Alarms blared as His security team rushed in. "Sir, we're under attack. Tarsian battleships just jumped into orbit." Ju steadied himself. "Contact Earth Command immediately and get me the Coalition peacekeeping force." But as staff scrambled to establish communications, Ju saw the truth through his window. The city was already burning. Massive Tarsian warships hovered overhead, their weapons systematically targeting residential areas, schools, hospitals. This wasn't a military strike, it was extermination. "Coalition forces aren't responding," reported his communications officer, voice shaking. "Earth Command says our nearest defense fleet is 3 days away at maximum speed." Ju felt sick. New Horizon had minimal defenses. The Coalition had promised protection in this sector. Where were the peacekeepers that patrolled these lanes just days ago? "Evacuate as many as we can to the emergency shelters," he ordered, "and keep trying." Hear the Coalition channels. But as the hours passed and the bombardment continued, the horrible truth became clear. Help wasn't coming. On Earth, Communications Director Song sat alone in her office, surrounded by screens displaying classified transmissions she had spent the last 12 hours decrypting. Her hands trembled as she compiled the evidence for the emergency cabinet meeting. The door opened, and President Kang entered, followed by the highest-ranking government officials. Their faces were ashen. They had been watching the destruction of New Horizon unfold in real time. "Please tell me you found something," said Kang, her normally strong voice barely audible. Song nodded grimly. "It's worse than we thought, Madam President." She activated the main screen. "These are encrypted communications between the Tarsian High Command and representatives from the Medusan, Vulan, and Cillian governments." The officials watched in stunned silence as translations appeared. The human problem must be addressed before they develop further technologies. Their colony at New Horizon provides an opportunity. Remove it and we remove their foothold in the outer zone. Coalition peacekeepers will experience simultaneous navigation system failures. Estimated repair time, 72 hours. Once the humans are properly diminished, balance can be restored. Defense Minister Choi slammed his fist on the table. "Betrayal, we signed their treaty in good faith." "They never intended to honor it," said Admiral Jun. "The treaty was just to get our most powerful weapon out of play. They planned this all along." President Kang sank into a chair. "How many dead on New Horizon?" "Current estimates are 3 million, replied Foreign Secretary Wu, her voice breaking. "And rising. The Tarsians are targeting civilian centers first." "Our conventional forces?" asked Kang. "The colony's defense grid was overwhelmed in the first hour," reported Admiral Jun. "Our nearest battle group is pushing their engines beyond safety limits, but they're still 60 hours away." "The other colonies?" Kang's question hung in the air. "Intelligence suggests the Tarsians will move on to Proxima Station next, then New Terra," answered Song. "They're planning to eliminate our outer colonies one by one, while the Coalition conveniently looks away." The room fell silent, except for the constant ping of incoming casualty reports. "We trusted them," whispered President Kang. "We played by their rules." "And they betrayed us," said Choi. "The question is, what do we do now?" The Thunderchild drifted in space, officially experiencing engine difficulties that had slowed its journey back to Earth. Most of its systems were running on minimal power, appearing to any observers as if the mighty vessel was indeed limping. Home. In his quarters, Captain Lee watched the incoming transmission from Earth, his face hardening with each report of destruction on New Horizon. When the communication ended, he sat motionless, thinking of the colony he had visited just months ago. The schools, the farms, the families. His communication panel lit up. Admiral Han's face appeared, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "You've heard about New Horizon?" Han asked. "Yes," replied Lee, "and the Coalition betrayal." Han nodded. "The President is preparing to address the Coalition Council, demand explanations. But by then, millions more will be dead," finished Lee. "The Thunderchild is officially still en route to Earth for decommissioning," said Han carefully. "According to your last report, you're experiencing significant engine problems that have forced you to take a longer route home." Lee understood what wasn't being said. "Admiral, if I were to divert to New Horizon, you would be violating direct orders and breaking the treaty Earth signed," Han replied. "Officially, Earth Command would have to disavow your actions." A long silence hung between them. "And unofficially?" asked Lee finally. Han's eyes met his through the screen. "Unofficially, Captain. I have 15 grandchildren. 3 of them live on colonies that will be next after New Horizon. When I look in the mirror tomorrow morning, I want to be able to meet my own eyes." The meaning was clear. "I understand." "Admiral." After the transmission ended, Lee sat motionless for several minutes. Then he pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All senior officers to the bridge immediately." 5 minutes later, the Thunderchild's command crew assembled. Lee looked at each face, people he had served with for years, people he trusted with his life. "I've just received word that the Tarsian fleet is attacking New Horizon. 3 million. Civilians are dead and the number is climbing." He paused to let this sink in. "Coalition peacekeepers who promised to protect the colony are mysteriously absent." Shocked murmurs filled the bridge. "Sir," asked Commander Sung, "what about our orders to return to Earth?" "Those orders stand," replied Lee, "and I will not ask any of you to disobey them." He moved to the main view screen, which showed the decommissioning procedures scheduled for the Thunderchild's return. "However, I am going to New Horizon. Alone? If necessary, I'll take a shuttle if I must." Lieutenant Bay stood up. "Sir, the shuttle wouldn't even make it halfway." "I know," said Lee quietly. One by one, the officers exchanged glances. Then Commander Sung spoke. "Captain, I believe the Thunderchild is experiencing more serious engine difficulties than previously reported. We may need to test our systems at full capacity to diagnose the problem." Lee looked at his executive officer, understanding dawning. "That would mean powering up all systems, including weapons and the Cascade field. For diagnostic purposes only, of course," added Chief Engineer June with the ghost of a smile. Around the bridge, officers nodded in agreement. "And our course?" asked Lee. Navigator Park answered promptly. "It appears our navigation system is also malfunctioning, sir. We seem to be heading toward New Horizon rather than Earth." Lee looked at his crew, at the determination in their eyes, the readiness to risk everything for their people. "Very well," he said, taking his captain's chair. "Power up all systems. Let's run a full diagnostic." Throughout the massive ship, darkened sections blazed to life. The Cascade field generators, supposedly prepared for dismantling, hummed with building energy. Weapon systems came online as the Thunderchild's true power awakened. Course set for New Horizon maximum speed, ordered Lee. "Let's show the galaxy what happens when you betray humanity." The Thunderchild dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of blue energy, its massive hull gleaming under the twin suns of New Horizon. What greeted them made even veteran officers gasp. The colony world below was barely visible through clouds of smoke and debris. Entire cities burned. And in orbit, a Tarsian armada unlike anything humanity had ever faced filled the blackness of space. Over 50 warships arranged in the Tarsians' distinctive claw formation. "My God," whispered Navigator Park. "The colony." Captain Lee stood. From his chair, his face set like stone as he surveyed the destruction. 3 of the planet's major cities were clearly visible from orbit, or rather, the infernos that had replaced them were visible. "Tactical assessment," he ordered, his voice steady despite the horror before them. Lieutenant Bay's fingers flew across her console. 53 Tarsian warships detected, including 3 dreadnoughts. "They've already spotted us, Captain. They're breaking formation and moving to surround us." The bridge fell silent, 53 against 1. Even with the Thunderchild's advanced technology, these were impossible odds. "Life signs on the planet?" asked Lee. Communications Officer Yoon looked up from her station, relief briefly crossing her face. "There are survivor pockets, sir. The underground shelters in Westridge City appear intact. Approximately 2 million colonists may have survived. A glimmer of hope, but only if those survivors could be protected from the continuing bombardment." "Sir," said Commander Sung quietly, "we're being hailed by the Tarsian flagship." Lee nodded. On screen, the view screen flickered to life, revealing a Tarsian war captain. The alien's scaled face showed the characteristic sneer of his species, 4 yellow eyes blinking independently. "Human vessel," the Tarsian said, his words translated by the ship's computer. You have violated the Weapons Limitation Treaty by entering this system with banned technology. Power down your ship and prepare to be boarded." Lee almost laughed at the absurdity. The Tarsians were slaughtering millions while lecturing about treaty violations. "Lieutenant Yoon," he said calmly, "open channels to all ships in the system, and make sure this transmits on all coalition frequencies." "Channels open, sir. We're broadcasting across all networks." Lee straightened his uniform and looked directly into the camera. His next words would likely end his career, if he survived. But he didn't hesitate. "This is Captain Lee of the UES Thunderchild. To the Tarsian forces attacking New Horizon, and to all coalition species monitoring this frequency. You forced us to play by your rules. We signed your treaty. Then you changed the rules. You conspired to eliminate us while we stood defenseless." He paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. "Now we play by our rules." He made a cutting motion across his throat, and Yoon terminated the transmission. "Battle stations," ordered Lee. "Power the cascade field to maximum capacity." Throughout the massive ship, crew members rushed to their posts. Engineers diverted all available power to the revolutionary defense system. Weapons officers prepared the ship's formidable arsenal. "Sir," said Tactical Officer Jin, "the Tarsians are laughing at us. Their communications indicate they think we're bluffing, that one ship can't possibly stand against their armada." Lee allowed himself a thin smile. "Let them laugh. Full speed ahead directly toward their flagship." The Thunderchild surged forward, its engines pushing to maximum thrust. The Tarsian fleet responded immediately, scores of enemy vessels firing simultaneously at the lone human ship. But instead of exploding under the barrage, something remarkable happened. The space around the Thunderchild shimmered as countless energy bolts struck its cascade field. With each impact, the field glowed brighter, absorbing the enemy fire and growing exponentially stronger. "Cascade field at 200% capacity. And rising," reported Engineer June, amazement in his voice. "The more they fire, the stronger we get." "Wait for my mark," said Lee, watching as the Tarsian ships continued their relentless assault, still not understanding what they were facing. "Let them give us all the power we need." The Thunderchild plowed forward, its luminous shield now blindingly bright, absorbing gigawatts of enemy fire with each passing second. When they were positioned directly among the heart of the Tarsian fleet, Lee gave the order, "Release cascade energy, full dispersal pattern." The built-up energy exploded outward in a perfect sphere of destruction. The nearest Tarsian ships simply disintegrated. Even the massive dreadnoughts buckled and broke apart as the energy wave tore through their hulls. In 30 seconds, 27 enemy ships were destroyed or crippled. The remaining Tarsian vessels scrambled to regroup, clearly shocked by what they'd witnessed. They began firing again, but more cautiously, trying different weapon configurations. "They're adapting," warned Commander Sung. "Trying to find frequencies our cascade field can't absorb." Lee nodded. "Then we change tactics too. Bring us about. Target their command ships with conventional weapons, while the cascade field recharges." The battle that followed would later be studied in military academies across human space. One ship against an armada, using revolutionary tactics never before. Seen in galactic warfare, the Thunderchild danced through the Tarsian formation, its cascade field alternately absorbing enemy fire and releasing devastating energy pulses. 2 hours into the battle, with 17 Tarsian ships remaining, fresh alarms sounded on the bridge. "New contacts," announced Lieutenant Bay. 3 ships just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system." Lee tensed. "Identification?" Bay's expression changed from concern to astonishment. "Sir, they're ours. Human ships, the same class as the Thunderchild." The view screen showed 3 massive vessels approaching rapidly, their designs identical to the Thunderchild. Each activated its own cascade field, the shields glowing with blue-white energy. A transmission came through. "Thunderchild, this is..." "Fleet Commander Ju aboard the UES Defiance. Sorry we're late to the party. Looks like you started without us." Relief swept through the bridge. Reinforcements had arrived. Reinforcements no one knew existed. "Fleet Commander," replied Lee, unable to keep surprise from his voice. "We weren't aware any other Cascade ships were operational." Ju's laugh carried through the speakers. That was rather the point, Captain. Earth has been building these vessels in secret facilities throughout the asteroid belt. When news of New Horizon reached us, President Kang gave the order to activate the entire fleet. The 3 new warships moved into formation alongside the battle-scarred Thunderchild, their pristine hulls contrasting with the carbon scoring that now covered their sister ship. "Shall we finish this together, Captain?" asked Ju. Li nodded, a new fire in his eyes. "Gladly, Commander." The remaining Tarsian ships, now facing 4 Thunderchild-class vessels, began retreating. But humanity had a message to deliver, one that needed to be heard across the galaxy. "All ships, target their flagship but leave it intact enough to limp home," ordered Li. "They need to deliver our message." The 4 human warships moved in perfect coordination, their combined cascade fields creating a light show visible from the planet's surface. Survivors in the colony shelters below watched through emergency broadcasts as humanity's most advanced technology turned the tide of what had seemed a hopeless battle. As the last Tarsian support ships jumped away, leaving only their damaged flagship, Li opened communications one final time. "To all coalition species who conspired against us, this is just the beginning of humanity's response. We came to your galactic community in peace. We followed your rules. And you betrayed us. Remember what you've witnessed here today. Remember what happens when humanity is backed into a corner." He ended the transmission and turned to his crew. "Let's get down to the surface. There are people down there who need our help." As medical and engineering teams prepared to assist the colony, news of the battle spread across human space and beyond. The message was clear. Humanity would not be eliminated. Not today, not ever. The Grand Council chamber of the Coalition had never been so packed. Representatives from all 28 member species crowded the circular room, an atmosphere of tension so thick it seemed to hang in the air like smoke. At the center podium stood Ambassador Park, her simple grey diplomatic uniform, a stark contrast to the elaborate garb of the elder species. Behind her stood a row of human military officers in dress uniforms, including Captain Li, recently promoted to Admiral for his actions at New Horizon. His face remained impassive, though the dark circles under his eyes revealed the toll of recent weeks. "Honored representatives," began Park, her voice carrying throughout the chamber without the need for amplification. "We have called this emergency session to address the conspiracy that led to the deaths of over 5 million human colonists on New Horizon." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many representatives shifted uncomfortably. "The human delegation is making serious accusations," interrupted the Medusan chairperson, her feathered crest flaring with agitation. "We require proof before such claims can be entertained." Park smiled thinly. "Of course, Communications Director Song, if you would." A younger woman stepped forward, activating a series of holographic displays that appeared above the chamber. "Floor. These are encrypted communications we intercepted between Tarsian High Command and representatives from 3 coalition species." The room fell silent as the transmissions played. Irrefutable evidence of collusion, of plans to eliminate the human problem, while coalition peacekeepers conveniently looked away. When the recordings ended, Park continued, "We also have evidence that coalition peacekeeping vessels were deliberately ordered to leave human territories undefended. Their navigation systems didn't malfunction. They were following direct orders." "This is disturbing," admitted the Fulan representative, his environmental suit hissing as he shifted position. "If authentic." "I assure you they are," replied Park. "But perhaps you need more compelling evidence." She nodded to Song, who activated a second holographic display. This one showed footage from New Horizon during the attack. Cities burning, civilians fleeing, children crushed under collapsed buildings as Tarsian warships methodically targeted residential areas. "This is what conspiracy looks like," said Park, her voice hardening. "This is what happens when you decide a younger species is too threatening to be allowed to prosper." The council chamber had fallen completely silent now. Even species known for their constant chattering were motionless, watching the horror unfold before them. 5 million dead, continued Park. Not soldiers, not warriors, farmers, teachers, children. She let the silence stretch for a long moment before continuing. Humanity joined this coalition in good faith. We shared our culture, our art, our knowledge. When you asked us to sign a treaty that limited our technology, we complied, despite knowing it would leave us vulnerable. She gestured to the officers behind her, and this is how we were repaid. The Cillian representative, one of those implicated in the transmissions, finally spoke. The treaty was meant to maintain balanced power among all species. Your cascade, technology threatened that balance. No, countered Park. It threatened your dominance. There's a difference. She stepped aside, allowing Admiral Lee to take the podium. The move was calculated, putting face to face the very military officer who had defied the treaty to save human lives. Lee surveyed the chamber slowly before speaking. His voice was quiet, but carried the weight of command. You feared our warship. So much you tried to ban it, he said simply. Then you conspired to eliminate us when we complied with your ban. He paused, meeting the eyes of several representatives. But here's what you should really be afraid of. What you saw at New Horizon, what you feared enough to ban, is only what we chose to reveal. A chill seemed to sweep through the chamber. Humanity doesn't want war, continued Lee. We never did. But make no mistake, if you come for our colonies again, what happened to the Tarsian fleet will seem merciful by comparison. The implied threat hung in the air like a blade. President Kang stepped forward now, taking her place at the podium. As Earth's highest elected official, her presence at the council was unprecedented. We have terms, she stated flatly. Non-negotiable ones. She activated her own display, showing a revised treaty. First, the Weapons Limitation Treaty is hereby nullified. Humanity will deploy whatever technology we deem necessary to protect our citizens. The council erupted in objections, but Kang continued undeterred. Second, the species implicated in this conspiracy will face sanctions to be determined by an independent tribunal. Third, reparations will be paid to the survivors of New Horizon. She paused, looking around the chamber. And finally, a new Coalition Security Council will be formed, with humanity holding a permanent seat. Never again will peacekeeping forces be withdrawn without unanimous consent of all affected parties. The chamber descended into chaos as representatives argued among themselves. Hours of heated debate followed, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The evidence was too damning, the moral high ground too clearly in humanity's favor. And hovering unspoken over the proceedings was the knowledge that 4 Thunderchild-class vessels were now operational, with rumors of more under construction. 10 years later, Admiral Lee stood on the observation deck of the UES Peacekeeper, the newest and largest of humanity's Cascade ships. Below, the joint human-Xindi colony of New Beginning celebrated its founding day with colorful parades visible even from orbit. Beautiful view, said Fleet Commander Ju, joining him at the viewport. Lee nodded. Worth protecting. In the decade since the New Horizon incident, much had changed. The revealed conspiracy had shocked many coalition species, leading to widespread reforms and a shift in how the galactic community viewed humanity. The Tarsians had been sanctioned heavily, their military capabilities reduced under strict supervision. The 3 coalition species who had conspired with them faced similar consequences, their representatives removed and tried for crimes against sentient beings. Most significantly, humanity's role had evolved. Initially feared for their technology, humans were now respected, even relied upon as peacekeepers. The very ships once banned had become symbols of security throughout coalition space. Transmission from coalition headquarters, announced a young officer. The Pelian dispute has been resolved. Our presence is no longer required in that sector. Another crisis averted without firing a shot, observed Ju. Just our arrival was enough to bring them to the negotiation table. Lee smiled slightly. Fear can be useful that way. Their conversation was interrupted by an incoming communication. A hologram appeared, showing President Kang, now in her final term of office. Admiral, Commander, she greeted them. I wanted to personally inform you that the last reparation payments for New Horizon were completed today. The memorial is finally fully funded, Lee nodded solemnly. They had rebuilt the colony bigger and stronger than before, but they had never forgotten those lost. "And the Security Council vote?" asked Jukang smiled. "Unanimous. The Protection Pact has been extended to cover all developing species within Coalition space. No more selective enforcement. It was a significant victory, ensuring that younger civilizations would receive the protection humanity had been denied." After the transmission ended, Lee returned to the viewport, watching the celebration below. Children from 6 different species played together in parks that, on any other world, might have been reduced to ash like those on New Horizon. "You know what the Medusans are calling us now?" asked Ju. "What's that?" "The Shield of the Galaxy." Ju chuckled. "Quite a change from the human problem." Lee's eyes moved from the colony to the stars beyond, thinking of the countless worlds now under humanity's protection. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same technology that had once terrified the Coalition now kept its peace. "Send a message to all ships in the fleet," he said suddenly. "Sir, tell them to maintain position over every human colony tonight, running lights on full. I want our people to look up and see them." "A show of force?" asked Ju, surprised. Lee shook his head. "A reminder of what we lost and what we've become. That night, as celebrations concluded across human space, colonists looked up to see their skies filled with the gleaming hulls of Thunderchild-class vessels, their cascade fields creating auroras visible from the ground. Not as weapons of war, but as guardians, the message spread across the galaxy. Humanity remembered its dead, humanity protected its own, and now humanity protected others. What had begun with fear had transformed into something unexpected: respect. The species that had once conspired to eliminate humanity now slept safer knowing human ships patrolled their skies. The warship too powerful to allow had become the shield too valuable to lose.